What's up, everybody? Welcome to Full Draw Friday, number 73. This week I'm going to be talking about some postseason scouting stuff. It'll be a short one. We're going to get into that. These are going to get shorter as we go into the off-season for the most part, until we get into maybe some turkey stuff. And then once we get towards food plotting season, of course, we'll talk about some property management stuff there with food plots, and we might get into some hinge cutting stuff and things like that. That's what we're doing on Full Draw Friday now that the season is over. So most of the actual hunting strategy stuff will wait until turkey season for turkey hunting, and then maybe try to do some western hunting stuff here in about August, and then the deer hunting strategy stuff will come back in September, October timeframe. But for right now, we're going to talk about postseason scouting on Full Draw Friday, number 73. All right. Postseason scouting, to me, can give you a lot of valuable information when it comes to figuring out where your deer are at, especially for information that will translate into the hunting season. One of the issues with scouting a lot of times is like if you're out there in the summertime doing your scouting, while you will find some information that will be good for you during the season, a good portion of it is also going to be mostly useless. And that just has to do with where you're at and what kind of terrain you're hunting and what your property sets up like. But a lot of times, those deer, especially bucks, are going to use different locations in the summertime and the fall. They're not going to be generally not in the same places throughout the entire year. They're going to shift. Everybody knows about the fall shift. In the summer shift, of course, they're going to be in bachelor groups, so they don't care to be around other bucks. They're looking for places that are generally cooler, places they can keep the heat off of them, maybe have a breeze blowing through, not quite as thick, whereas obviously in the wintertime, it's pretty much the opposite, especially when you're talking about in the late season. Like right now, when it gets really cold, they're looking for places with good thick cover, good thermal cover, and food, of course. So if nothing else, the scouting that you can do right now is going to help you in next year's late season. There's also going to be a lot of available sign, too. Right now, with all the leaves off, and even with the ground being frozen like it is, and if you've got snow, that's a benefit. But like us, we've had it for a while, and it's finally starting to melt. You can still see trails that the deer have been using throughout the fall, and especially the late season. You can kind of tell which ones are a little more fresh, or which tracks, where there are more tracks that are fresh. But you can see a lot of rubs right now. You still could probably see some scrapes. There might be some open scrapes that are the big community scrapes that'll be used all year long. But you're definitely going to be able to see rubs and find beds where those bucks were probably staying there in October and November. And then you're also going to be able to figure out, okay, where did they move to once the late season hit? Once it got really cold, what food sources were they preferring? Things like that. And how you're going to do that is basically get out there, put boots on the ground. You don't have to worry about spooking deer right now. The season's over. So if you bump them to the neighbors, it's not like they're going to get killed, and give them enough time. They're probably going to come back. They're going to forget about it. They're going to be back in there, especially if you've got food. So if you've got a premier food source right now, which for a while was just about anything that was above the snow. Me and Dusty were talking yesterday. There's just no honeysuckle left because a lot of places that's all they've had to eat because that's all that's been above the snow, so they've been picking away at that. And then if you've had standing beans or something like that, they've been getting crushed. And if you have that, you definitely don't have to worry as much about spooking a buck right now. He's going to come back to that food probably, if not that same night, definitely the next day. If that's where he's feeding, that's where he knows the best food is available. If you're like most hunters out there, at some point, you've dreamed of having a piece of hunting ground to call your own. Maybe you finally decided to make those dreams a reality. If so, you need to talk to our guy, Rodney Hawkins. Rodney is a land specialist with Midwest Farm and Land. If you haven't heard of them, they aren't your average real estate company. While they do deal in traditional residential and commercial real estate, their specialty is recreational and farm ground. With agents like Rodney serving across the state of Illinois, no matter what you're looking for, they can find it. Even if you want to sell what you already have to upgrade, downgrade, reinvest, whatever, they've got you covered. For more information, you can contact Rodney at 618-925-3153, and he'll get you taken care of. On top of what he does, For MFL, Rodney also has his own company called RG Outdoors. They currently carry hard and soft-sided blinds, blind chairs, tree stands, and cameras from Radix Hunting, Tacticam trail cameras, Fission e-bikes, and he's adding new stuff all the time. I've personally used all of these products, and I'm beyond happy with every one of them. The Fission e-bike is a game changer, and you will not find a better one for the price. If you're interested in anything RG Outdoors has to offer, you can send them a message to their Facebook page, RG Outdoors, email them at rgoutdoors@yahoo.com, or again, just call Rodney directly at 618-925-3153. But you can get out there and be pretty intrusive because of that. You can figure out, like I said, where they're bedding. You can go right into the bedroom, map stuff out. You're going to be able to see it a lot better. Follow those trails that are going from their bed. Find out where they're feeding. If you didn't know, like if you haven't seen them in the late season, if you can find their bed, figure out where the main trails are closest to that, or where it looks like they're entering and exiting that area, and follow them out and see where they're going, see where the next the closest food is for them. You're probably going to figure out where they were feeding and what they were feeding on, because let's say they were going to, you've got a bean field on one side of the property and a cornfield on the other. If they were going one direction or the other, if there's a bean field that is just bean stubble and not a lot out there, and you've got a cornfield that's corn stalks, and after they shelled it, they didn't do anything with it. They didn't turn any dirt. And he's going to the corn. You can probably bet that the next year, if those crops are rotated, he'll be going the other direction. So that's something you can keep in mind as well. Same thing if you've got a winter wheat field. So if it was corn and they ended up putting winter wheat in so they could do straw beans the following year, maybe it's going to be, again, that other field where that crop rotation happens. And that'll change throughout the year as well. But definitely late season, figure out where they were going to feed, and then log that in the memory bank, write it down somewhere, put it in your Onyx or whatever mapping service you use, and just make note of it. That way for next year's late season, you know, hey, this buck prefers to go to a cornfield in the late season. And then, you know, instead of saying, okay, this buck got out of his bed and he went east to this field, so that's where I'm going to set up next year, and then you do that and you don't see him because he's always going west to the other field, you'd know why. There's a lot to that, I think, of crop rotations and stuff, and you can figure a lot out what they prefer this time of year, just being able to see where they've been traveling. Another thing is obviously shed hunting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that probably on a future episode, but there's definitely going to be some sheds laying out there right now. I've seen a lot of pictures of bucks with one side dropped, some with both sides dropped. My buck that I shot dropped his right side, his left side. When he fell down, when he died, he dropped that left side, so it was about to come off. So you're going to have the potential to find some sheds as well, and you're going to find them in those same places, those travel corridors between their bedding and food. And then obviously you can go, if you have a food source on your property and you've got trails that are coming into it, you've been seeing the deer where they've been entering the field, even if you haven't seen physically laid eyes on a buck that's been doing that, go to those places where the deer feel most comfortable coming out into that food source, and then backtrack it and figure out where they're bedding at. And then you can look for buck beds inside of that. That's something else, too. You're going to find a lot of bedding this time of year close to food, really close to food. A lot of that's going to be doe bedding, but you should be able to tell based on the size of the beds if you can actually see the imprint of where the deer have been laying, or, again, melted snow is a good one. If there's a spot where there's no snow around that looks like it's the size of a buck, good chance that was a buck bed. But a lot of times also there will be buck signs to go along with that, so rubs, maybe some scrapes, things like that. A lot of them in one condensed area. Our partners at Flambeau Outdoors have some of the best solutions in the industry for your decoy and storage needs. They're focused on innovation that matters, and they build their products to last. They're probably most known for their whitetail, waterfowl, and turkey decoys, and that's for good reason. They've got a lot of quality options at great price points in each category. The Boss Buck is a personal favorite of mine in their whitetail line, and I've been throwing their Stormfront mallards in front of duck blinds for years now. Don't sleep on their storage solutions either, though. Whether it's fishing tackle, firearms, ammo, or archery equipment, they've got you covered. They just stepped up their archery storage game, too, with the new Formula bow case. It might just be the best bow case on the market. We've been using ours for several months now, and I'm continually impressed with the ease of use and security they provide. Make the most of your time outdoors with Flambeau. Realism that gets results. So if I'm walking around on a property and I happen across a couple rubs that look like they're getting close to some thick stuff, I'll follow, especially if there's any kind of something that looks like it could be a trail or a place a deer might walk, I'll follow that back in and just see, Now if I'm starting to see 5 or 6 rubs and we're back into a little thick pocket and it looks like there's some beds in the area, you can about guarantee that a buck was bedding there at some point during the season. And that is good information to have going into your next season, because that's what we're doing right now. We're building intel for the next season. Yeah, it's good to know what happened to this past season and what we could have done different for sure, but you can go back and do that all day, and it's not going to change anything that happened this season. But if you put all that into action for next year, now you can say, okay, I was here, the deer looked like they were here, this is where I should have been, next year I'm going to set up there. You can also use that for your property management goals as well. Take that intel into consideration when maybe you were thinking about putting food in a certain spot all season, but now you go in and find out that a buck was bedding completely opposite where you thought he was, so that food might not be as beneficial. Maybe you need to adjust your plan and move it somewhere else. So it's really valuable for that, not wasting time when it comes to making big property improvements if you have the ability to do that. But even if you don't, it's going to help you with your setups, stand locations, whether you're pre-hanging stands or whether you like to do hang and hunt style, mobile stuff, climbers, saddles, things like that. It's still going to be good information to have. I would say even especially in those situations because you're going to be more apt to kind of move into those places you're seeing where they were using right now that maybe you didn't realize at first. You're going to be more apt to go in there with your hang and hunt set or your saddle or your climber and set up on one of those travel corridors that maybe you didn't have a stand on to start with. Definitely can gain a lot of information right now. So if you get a nice, decent day, we're supposed to have some coming up, I think in the 40s and maybe the 50s, to get out there and walk. If you got some time off, don't go dormant until shed season or even later into the summer when it comes to focusing on killing these bucks, because we say it a lot. Killing mature bucks consistently is a year-round endeavor. And right now you can gain so much information just by getting out there, putting boots on the ground and walking. And like I said, if it's a nice day, you got some time off, you got nothing else going on, just get out there, put some notes in your phone, mark it on your map, whatever it is. Take note of where all those trails are, where the rubs are that you're seeing, especially scrapes, all that kind of stuff. And it even may just be a place where you think, hey, I need to put a camera here next year, not even just a stand, but maybe I need to put a camera here come September or whatever. And the information is just going to be so valuable for next year because, again, summer scouting has its place. A lot of times, though, it's going to be completely different come October, whereas right now, at the very least, you're going to be able to hunt these deer on these patterns next December and January, but also with those buck bedding areas, being able to see those rubs, being able to see those trails, where food is, you're going to be able to put that into action in even October and November. So get out there, do some postseason scouting, enjoy the outdoors. Even though you can't get out there with the bow or the gun in your hand anymore, the season's behind us. Don't let it get you down too much. Even if you didn't kill one this year, start working towards getting it done next year. That's all I got for this week on Full Draw Friday. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you guys on Monday for our end of the season campfire episode.